Hey, hey, welcome to another episode. I am Dagny.
And I'm Damali.
And in this episode, we want to discuss with you the concept of Black spaces.
Dun, dun, dun. Drum roll, please.
With a capital B. Now, the reason why this came up in our minds was, as always, we're having, just conversations on and off the podcast, right? And we were noting how this concept of Black spaces we feel has evolved historically, and wanted to take note of how that has been influenced or not with storytelling, with TV shows, with movies, with experiences. And is that problematic? Is that better? Do the Black spaces of today actually provide what the people need compared to what Black spaces was providing back in the day? So this is where we're going. That's the direction. Those are the vibes that we're going in. So to start, it possibly would be important or helpful to define what we mean by Black spaces. Yes. So sure. I'm going to, because this literally, I just thought of it. Damali, would you like to also share a little bit while I am looking for an official?
You're not supposed to say that on the podcast. Be quiet. Okay. While we do a little bit more research, I'm just kidding.
No. We got all the research, but this literally just came in my head right now.
You just had a thought. You're like, oh, let me look this up.
Yes.
Black spaces they're supposed to be a place where Black people can be safe, right? And we're trying to kind of discuss, like, are they safe and useful? And like, basically, like, it's I guess it's kind of like a safe spot for Black people to just, like, I guess, convene together on a shared or a common or shared, how can I say, like hobby or program or things like that. And it's Black space because it's supposed to be safe from other ethnicities, I think I shall say, right? And because a lot of times, we are always sucked into other spaces and we don't really have our own voice. So I suppose that's one definition, where it's just a place for us to have our own voice, our own spot where we can, like, evolve and just be be ourselves and not having to I guess contort ourselves to fit, like, I don't know, the white person's mold or the other person's mold, kind of thing, which everyone understands, and we don't have to we just have to be as we are in our Blackness, and just I think that's one way of one definition of that I can think of.
I like
that. To add to that,
yes,
Dagny?
Yes, I will add to that the few snippets I found so we can have, quotes, right?
Yes.
In here too to back it up. Okay. So we have something here noting that it's a term that was transformed by Black people during the 1960s, which of course I think primarily possibly in US history, because if you were from a Black country in the 1960s, I'm not sure if you needed to develop Black spaces. And the idea is that it embraced the complex space of power, love, and identity. It signified the difference between being put in a room and creating a room of one's own.
Yes.
And then another one that I like, or a few others that I like, to find oneself deeply rooted in a culture that is not fondly represented in the professional space one has chosen to occupy, to find oneself in. Another one, a Black space is a place where a Black person does not feel like they need permission to participate and feel a sense of belonging, which I think goes with what you were speaking to. And a place where Black people like to be without the interference of others who are not part of Black culture. And Black spaces tend to be more relaxed and more community oriented, apparently, allegedly, and supposedly. And then one last quote, white people typically avoid Black space, but Black people are required to navigate the white space as a condition of their existence.
That's what I was saying.
There you go.
Boom.
All right. So noting these definitions and what Damali noted as we're discussing this topic, Black space with a capital B is a fascinating phenomenon and dynamic that we will be speaking of for our frame of reference with the US experience and US history. It would be fascinating to see is how this dynamic plays out in Europe, because I'm sure Black people in Europe also needed to figure out or navigate creating Black spaces for themselves. But just looking at that was just the first page of searching, and they're all speaking to US reference to the Black space.
Yes.
So it is what it is in terms of how the internet automatically will just pigeonhole you into one demographic or one story. So as we're always trying to do is not just one story, because that's another thing. Even if you think of Latin America, for Black people there, because there are Black people in Latin America and Central America, what was their dynamic of have they had to create Black spaces for themselves? And what has that phenomenon been like for them? That'll be so fascinating. But this is me connecting dots as I always do. Yeah. So maybe later, if I find stuff like that, I will link that to the show notes and the blog post for this, because I always find it fascinating to see how Black people over the world have to navigate spaces that were not built for them.
Yeah, just to add before you go on while you're coughing too. Yeah, when you said a room of one's own, that I think is what stood out. That little thing stood out to me, because it makes it. I don't know if everyone knows. Virginia Woolf wrote has a room of one's own, but of course for her angle it's more for women having a room of one's own and a place where they can be separate from the men. So, but in this case, we're talking about Black spaces in the sense that I think that's the best definition of it. It's a room of one's own, a place of our own where it's just us and our ideas within that, and there's no other outside forces getting in to. So we have to contort ourselves,
perform
to other,
and have permission,
perform for other people there. So I like that little. It made me think of Virginia Woolf when you said that, even though it's from a feminism angle instead of the Black spaces angle. But,
right. No, I like that. Yes, yes. A way to connect the dots.
Yes,
we love to see
connecting the dots.
Yes. So to continue on this conversation adventure, let's go into how these Black spaces have evolved when it comes to moving away from it being something that is a physical space to something that has maybe branched off into, at least how we're thinking of it in movies and television and entertainment. So originally, like we noted in these definitions, Black spaces is a physical space. So historically in the US, like in the 60s up and down, Black spaces were a place where you would be safe so you don't get lynched or arrested or raped or killed for just being Black. And so they had things like I think it was called the Green Book, which I think there was a movie about with that really good actor, I'm forgetting his name now.
So where M.
Right, it starts with an M.
But it's he has a unique name.
Right, yes. I might search for it, but I'm talking, but it's fine. And the concept was, what we had is that there was a green book that told you when you are traveling throughout the US, these are the safe places for you as a Black person. And that would be the certain routes you're taking, the hotels you may stay at, the hostels.
Mahershala Ali.
There we go. Beautiful name. Yes. So he was in a movie called, I think that movie was actually called The Green Book, but he was a pianist as well as but he had to pretend to be the driver because they were going to places where Black people were not safe at that time. And he was his agent or manager was a white guy, but they would switch roles to pretend to make it seem that he would be safe and the cops wouldn't, not just cops, every other American wouldn't cause him a problem. So that Green Book was a real thing, and every aspect of life that would be safe for Black people was in that book. And so that maybe could be considered the first time curating Black spaces in that way for people. So even when you had the deal of the boycotts happening at that time, well, then now you need to create even more Black spaces that are safe when you're deciding to boycott restaurants, boycott transportation, and all of that. And when we were talking about, do Black spaces really help people or help Black people with a capital B? When we fast forward now to now, where even though now in the US, you still have things called sundown or sundown, sun up, sundown cities where it is not safe to be Black there. And so it's known that if you happen to have to pass through it, do not stay there at night because you would possibly disappear. And we have that all over the nation. It's not just in the South, as some people want to claim. So even though people may not everybody may not have a green book in their car, it is still actually, among Black people anyway, known that there's certain things that you still actually need to be aware of. Mm-hmm. But when we take that outside of physical spaces and talk about movies and films and stuff, has that influenced what we consider Black spaces for better or for worse? Mm-hmm. And so some of the shows, the TV shows, the movies that we wanted to speak on or bring up, the first one, which Damali noted, was the Abbott Elementary show.
Yes.
And the success of it and what it provides when it comes to being a somewhat of adding to Black spaces. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Damali, in terms of noting these connections that we're making.
These connections, yeah. I really like, I've forgotten when we started Abbott Elementary. I think we first started together, we watched the first episode together, I think.
Right. Was that like a few years ago, I think?
It was some years ago when it came out.
You've watched it more than me. Yeah.
Yes, and then I kind of stopped for a while, and then and then of course there's no Hulu there's no Hulu in China, so I had to like stop before kind of thing. And then and I really like the show because it really it just seems real to me, and very and the characters are really well fleshed out. And the way they talk about they talk about serious issues, but like in a subtle way without hitting your head over with it. And then the characters, we have like white characters, we have Black characters, we have there's one that's like I think she's an Italian background. You have gay characters, and they all are like different. They're not like, some of the other shows, it's just kind of like the stereotypical trope where like the character isn't really a real character. It's it's not real, like it's a fake it's kind of like a fake character. But in these, they're all fleshed out. And this part of the reason why we're even doing this podcast is that that idea, Ken, you were like, oh yeah, Abbott Elementary is a really good example of like, that's how shows should be. Like, that's how we deal. That is like the new age, I guess. Oh, what can I say? I don't know. New age of the shows of like, oh, we want more Black shows, or we want more inclusivity, or we want more. And I think that is a really good idea, because it's not. And then in that one, even though that could be in a Black space, I suppose, but like it's not well, I guess it's a little different because there's other characters that are not Black in it. But I suppose like the main character is Black, and she is not stereotypical. Like they're fleshed out, and it isn't just another Black or gay token show, And I feel sometimes some other shows sometimes do have that issue where it's like you're hitting us over the head with like, you see, this is for Black people. Oh, you see, this is this problem, and they're kind of like making I don't know. It's not smooth. It's very like but I don't know if I want to say like overly like politically correct. I don't know if that's the wording I want to use. Whereas like Abbott seems very like natural to me in the way it like discusses issues. And then even though we have like multiple Black characters, but they all act differently. They're not like put in the same box, and they all have their different wants and fears and hobbies and things like that. And so that's how I'll start with Abbott, and and I really like watching it, and also it makes me think. Well, did you want to add anything about, or should I go on to talking about the older shows that it reminds me of?
Right. Well, I can. Yeah. Actually, go ahead and add that, and then I'll add.
Yeah. Abbott reminds me of a lot of shows that we used to have that were fleshed out, and then I don't know what happened to them. They just got like wiped on the face of it, like the Jeffersons, the Sister. Living Single, Cosby Show, Different World, Girlfriends, like all of these shows were also similar to Abbott in the sense that like they were fleshed out characters, and like there were Black people, but they were real. They weren't like a stick figure of themselves, like, you know, a parody is what I think is the word I'm looking for. And so, yeah, so, and I think that's what stands out for me, because there's a lot of other, I don't know, I feel like there's a lack of these like types of Black shows that we didn't have a lack of before. Whereas now it's like, oh, like how many shows are really talking about like very complex characters and fleshing them out and like really giving them a lot of facets kind of thing. And so, yeah, so I that's one of the reasons why I like Abbott, for that reason. I think that's the one thing I'll say about that. And I think also that is the way we deal with the lack of Black shows. I don't think we should like, you know how we're always trying to like make a Black version of something or a white version. I don't think that's the way we do that, you know? And then like, and it makes me think of like Friends or Golden Girls, where Friends and Golden Girls, of course, like are kind of criticized because there's not enough Black people. What is this? We don't want this show. And I'm kind of like, I don't think we need to do that. We can appreciate Friends and Golden Girls for what it was. And then now moving forward, we can just make shows like Abbott, like make shows that have fleshed out characters and complex storylines, and without like we don't have to be like, oh, let's make another Golden Girls with Black people this time, you know, or I could say make Friends, but like Living Single is kind of like that kind of is like basically like that was first and then Friends happened. But I think that's one way to deal with it. So I think that's what I'll start with there. And I think there's very good representation of characters in Abbott Elementary as well. It's not just like one person and one type of person and that's it. I think that's what I'll start with, and then you can start, and then we'll go into our Tyler Perry distinction. Tyler Perry distinction of
how
that.
How are you going to overshadow the suspense?
Yeah, the suspense. But I thought maybe you want to add about that, and then we can move to that.
So yes, I think when it comes to note, I feel it is an important connection to note how like the need for representation, I think, did come out of the historical Black spaces that were created before.
Yes.
We had these physical spaces, we had these, and I'm sure in those physical spaces, certain conversations were happening, problem solving was happening, advocacy was happening, family issues was happening. And then eventually feeling like, no, actually, there needs to be more representation in these movies and TV shows. We can't we have our private spaces, but then we don't see ourselves anywhere. Mm-hmm. And like you noted, yes, that came up with, we had different shows from the Jeffersons to the Cosby Show to, I think there's an Apartment 802 or something show as well. And then fast forward to Different World, Girlfriends, Living Single, Sister, also Scandal, also Awkward Black Girl. But noting how as the decades passed with this notion that, we need representation, how I don't want to say completely missed or derailed, but like the evolution of it seemed to get influenced more and more away from the original Black spaces that were pushing for these sorts of things.
Yes.
So one, like you noted, where there were many more diverse shows on TV in the US at one point in time, and then they all just like were canceled, disappeared. We're not having that anymore. And now all the shows look like the same, with the one token Black or Hispanic or Latin character who's just there for comic relief or to be the criminal, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And then Abbott Elementary, I think, has been a breath of fresh air in some respect because of that dynamic happening for representation and entertainment in the US. And even though I have not seen as many episodes as you, but I noted with the ones that I had seen, I really appreciated how they are showcasing different types of Black experiences that, because it's in America, it makes sense that there's diversity in that too, that you do have the Latin person, the Italian person, the Jewish person. You do have, the classroom does have a mixture of kids in it, with majority of Black kids in it too, because that's what it's like in that neighborhood where are they supposed to be in Philly? I forget. Where are they supposed to be located? Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure it's up in the. I'm
It's
pretty sure it's up
Northeast.
north.
Okay, so maybe
Yeah,
Northeast
I
or
think so.
DMV or Philly area. Okay, or is
Mm.
it, or is this supposed to be Baltimore? I forget. I'm sorry. Anyway,
Yeah, I forget. I'm trying to see what.
so you can look that up while we're talking. And I really appreciated that, where each episode had a certain message, which reminded me of like, oh, this is like how we used to write shows for The Cosby Show or Different World, and those where each episode there was a message of the character had to learn a lesson, or maybe the character made a mistake and has to figure out how to apologize or how to fix it, or there is like, or the lesson is you need to ask for help. You can't do everything yourself, or you should not be judging people immediately, or, you know, simple things like that, which are universal truths or universal experiences. But having that representation of, but it's a Black main character going through these things, and their Blackness is not the token, but it's also not diluted. Like, yeah,
Yes.
they're Black, but that's just their skin color. We're going to have the character be something completely different. And it's like, no, that's actually just, they just happen to be Black, which will allow the story to be a certain way because they're Black, and that should be fine. We shouldn't have to reframe that into a certain box. And I do appreciate that a lot. And I really commend them to be able to continue being renewed for new seasons, because there is nothing else on TV yet until they try to copy them. There is nothing else right now anyway on TV or streaming that is giving you that. Now, the next step to that, which maybe we will go more into once we compare other TV or entertainment that's kind of doing the opposite of this, is noting how does that reflect back to what Black spaces are supposed to provide for its people. Because if the original ones, like the Green Book and the communities that were created through them back then, was not only for entertainment or representation, but it was also for like group economics, for group safety, group security, group education, group advocacy, group community contributions. The fact that we now have more representation on screen, on paper, in theaters, etc., does that add to the original process, the original protocol, the original goal, the original purpose of Black spaces at all? So that's something, if you're listening, while you're listening, something to take note of, because we're going to try and connect and answer that question. So now we can move on to segue that into, oh, wait, did you find something else?
1 second. Yeah, I wanted to add something to piggyback off of,
okay.
I think other thing of adding with the Black spaces and how useful it is in this space. Now, I believe Quinta Brunson is like the main character, I think, in Abbott Elementary, and I believe she's like the main like writer and maybe producer,
and probably producer too. Yeah,
and producer too. So obviously having a Black person behind it that helped. And then also the Tyler James Williams guy who plays like the guy character, like hopefully you can't hear that banging. They're doing some work here. I don't know if you can hear that. Anyway, and he I watched this like I think it was like Actors on Actors thing that I watched of him. Now he used to be a child actor. Like if you remember, everybody remembers Everybody Loves Chris, which is another Black show.
Like, we have to add that to the list of Black shows.
Exactly. Yes. Everybody Loves Chris. And, so he was a child actor. And then, of course, as time went on, it was hard for him to get work because like his voice was deeper than how he looked and everything. So anyway, he grew into that. But what really stood out, which makes me in the Black space, is that he said something in the Actors on Actors interview that like he kind of does his own thing of paying it forward. Because like he had a really good agent when he was a child actor. And so if there are children on the Abbott Elementary set that he sees that, because there's some children that you think they're into it, like they're really serious, and others that are like, if they're going to do it this one time, then that's it. But if he sees like the kids who are actually asking questions and really interested in how the acting works and stuff like that, he sometimes will let his old agent know like, hey, this kid looks very talented, so maybe you can help him out, kind of thing. And apparently his same agent helped him and Dakota Fanning and children like that. So I thought, I didn't know that he had done that and that was a thing. And I'm like, and he was asked that question. I was like, oh, wow, you wouldn't think. And I think that's also part of the Black spaces where it's like, oh, like you see, like I was a Black kid obviously before and I'm older. I'm like, oh, I'll tell my agent that this other child here, this Black child, could also need some help with, and it's like it's a safety thing, because I'm sure you guys all know about like a lot of agents and people like harassing and like horrible things happening to child actors. But for him, his situation was very safe, and the person he worked with was very safe. And I think that is a way of like, that's a protection for a safety wise too, of like, oh, here's this agent I had who was really good for me and safe with me. Oh, let me, if you're interested as a child, let me, send them to her. So I think it also adds to, and also it makes me like Abbott Elementary even more, because then like, oh, behind the scenes is actually like, they're also like Blacks, like a usefulness in this kind of space of like helping each other. So I thought that was I just wanted to add that point, because I just thought about it now. I'm like, oh, that actually is another thing to add for that too.
That is, which is true. That is encouraging if those who are participating in the Black Spaces connection with entertainment are paying it forward, or really understanding their privilege or their access that they have while they're in there, sort of thing. So that is good. That is a good point. So that can segue then to the aspects of having Black spaces being represented in entertainment that, let's say, have room for improvement or possibly cause a lot more questions. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So we can't talk about Black entertainment in the US without bringing up the one and only Tyler Perry. Yes. And
round of applause first.
Yes, of course. And what we're going to say, we're not here to bash him or anything. I just want to preface
We're not.
We're not.
Yes.
Definitely respect the man. Have definitely watched some of his work, right? And kudos to him. Cheers to him. Yes. In addition to that, though, there is room for improvement in the catalog of Tyler Perry's work, because a lot of it is utilized as this is representation of Black people. Because he is one of those who insists in all his interviews that all of this is from his own life, or from the people in his life, or from his family. Like, all of this is so close to something real to him. But when you compare that to, let's say, something like Awkward Black Girl, who technically Issa could be like, well, yeah, this was very close to me because I'm awkward, But there's still a different flavor, right, to what's so close to Tyler Perry and what's so close to, if we're going to compare it, Awkward Black Girl. Okay, I'll start with the things I do respect in terms of Tyler Perry's work. I think it's awesome that he chose to really, at the time when he started, which was first theater shows that he was doing before doing more movies, really pushing local talent, really pushing this is a Black crew, a Black cast, a Black promotion, like all of that. And that means you're providing a whole lot of jobs and introducing us to this character, Medea, who he plays, insisting he needs to dress up as an old Black woman in the majority of his shows. And yes, I think that the theater concepts there were some messages there of like, I can see what you're doing of trying to show representation for Black families and the importance of having faith and the importance of having grace and all those sorts of things. When we went into the movie side, again, it was great that he created that movie studio he has is it Atlanta that is at, or at least in Georgia, so. Right? That's amazing, because how many other people have that in the American entertainment industry? Not many. So that's a huge feat. FEAT, yes? Great. But the narrative in all of the movies is, one, we don't have a budget for good wigs. But we need to insist. No, we got to start. We're just going to start right there, because we're keeping it 110 on this episode. You insist that you have to have Black women in these movies, but they all should wear bad wigs. And it's like that already you're setting us up for failure. Like, why do you have to put Black women in a box like that? And then unfortunately, because every single movie, after a while, you start seeing the exact same story. Black woman with a bad wig, but she is either major business tycoon, major professor, major something, but her love life is useless. It's trash.
Is in shambles.
Complete shambles. She's either married to some monster, or she doesn't have any men with her, or the one time she tries to go on a date, she gets raped, or like there is nothing but at the end, she gets saved because she finally went for the janitor, or she finally went for the trash guy, or she finally went for the kid next door. And I'm just like, why is that the storyline? And then like the notion, unfortunately, or the narrative is always, unfortunately, that like it's her fault. It was her fault that you ended up in that marriage. It's your fault that you were too picky. It was your fault that you're so successful that no other man could be with you. And it's very Black woman needing to be male-centered, and it's all your fault that the men in your life are useless vibes. And then sometimes bad wigs for some of the men, because there was that movie with that guy with the cornrows that was not his cornrows. And I was like, why did we have to do that? Why? So this is where representation can get tricky. And I'm not sure if we have this same dynamic happening fully yet for other demographics as big as this. Like you can see that in American entertainment, okay, Asians can get typecasted in a certain way. Latinas can get typecast in a certain way. Don't even start with Native Americans because you always forget to put them in there. And when you do, it's also typecasted in a certain way. But that none of them have the clout and the status of somebody like Tyler Perry, who is obviously only focused on Black entertainment or Black stories. Yes. So with this dynamic, it makes it, adding this to, well, this has to also be part of the extension of Black spaces because it's Black. And technically Tyler Perry started in Black spaces because his theater productions was a Black space. It was primarily a certain target market that he was going for, and it was primarily Black people showing up to support him. So having these sorts of recycling the same narrative over and over again brings me back to the question of how does this support or provide or further enhance Black spaces? Is it providing for the community? Is it contributing? Is it group economics, group education, group advocacy? If, unfortunately, the narrative, which I mean, not saying the whole movie is just about that, but that is the common thread, unfortunately, in a lot of his movies. And being a Black woman, I can't help to take note of it because it's like, this is supposed to be representation. Technically, other people would see and claim I'm part of that group because this is a Black woman who's professional going through the same thing over and over and over again. And it's almost like needing to create a form of oppression in all of his movies, but needing for like the Black woman to be the villain of this oppression dynamic in all of these movies. Which then adds another layer of Black spaces equal in gender for everyone within the Black space? If in a lot of these representations, Black men are showcased or represented in a certain way and Black women are showcased and represented in a certain way, neither of which possibly is giving space for the depth and variety and spectrum of flavors that Black people come in. So again, not to bash Mr. Tyler Perry, but there's room for improvement if you have that level of status and access, because his stuff doesn't get canceled like these other shows we were talking about, because he owns the network or is friends with Oprah or whatever. Like his stuff doesn't get caught up in those things. So if you have that level of access where the people who own these networks, who are usually not Black, are allowing your stuff to go through, what does that tell us? If the stuff like Abbott Elementary or the stuff like Different World, which doesn't do this, is the one constantly every season needing to really advocate for themselves, or they will just as simply get canceled. While the stuff that Tyler Perry puts out, where I don't know how much advocacy is needed, because it just seems like he's already lobbied for his stuff, it gets a green light automatically. Not to say he doesn't work hard for it, but it's obvious that there's a certain flavor to his stuff that's different, and it doesn't necessarily get canceled as much. Is that a reflection of Black spaces? If Black spaces itself doesn't even own it, those are other questions that I'm just asking, a bunch of questions for us to think about while we're connecting these dots. But that is that I will add. I'm just starting with that as we're going along on this conversation.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, and what's interesting is that it's not like, the stuff in Tyler Perry movies. I mean, obviously, yes, it happens. Like, it's not like, he's like lying about. I mean, that does happen, but it's just like, it's like he's showing it. It just seems like a very singular story kind of thing. It's like a continuous, like, this is the same story, and there's no other, like, because it's not like some of the issues that are talked about in Tyler Perry's movie. It's not like there aren't those in Abbott Elementary. Like, it's not like there aren't forms of abuse or certain characters that act as, like, it's not like it's not in there, but it's just dealt with differently. It's like more complex and more like, it's not just one, like, I don't want to say one trick pony because that sounds like bad, but like it does feel that way. And at least one, okay, there was one time where there was a good wig. Kelly Rowland was like, no. She was like, I'm gonna do my wig. Like, that's the one where Kelly Rowland's like, you are not gonna give me a bad wig. I'm paying for it. But and then there's that one, and then and then I think Taraji Henson, wasn't she in one of his? Yeah, she was like in, yeah. And Taraji Henson was also in Abbott Elementary kind of thing as well. And I think she was also broke in Abbott Elementary too, I think. But then, and she needed money anyway. But the issue is that, like, for Tyler Perry's movies, like, they do show a side of, but it's like it's that's not the only side we have. You know what I mean? Like people do go through this, but it just seems that his stuff, and it's always some abuse going on. Like the same with the also the other one, was it Divorce and Black or something, and then that other show. And I think, I don't know if I haven't seen Kelly Rowland's yet, but I think also there's some weird stuff going on there. And it's always like some successful woman and she gets like abused really bad, and it's always like abusive in the relationship or abusive out, and it's just very like, and I don't know if that is like, like there's more. Like, I think there's more stories that I feel, and maybe that's for him, that's his, like, that's how I see things, that's my own, those are the stories I've heard, and I'm like, okay, but like I guess it's just like not, it, I don't know, I find Abbott more, I can relate to Abbott more. Like, I can be like, oh, okay, I can see myself in that character, and that, oh, I can see other people, whereas in Tyler's, I'm just, after a while, like in the beginning I was like, oh, okay, the first couple ones we watched, like, okay, and then Medea and all that stuff. But then as time come on, I was like, why are the women always being like abused all the time? And it's always like abuse and a bad wig and just like, and it's always like the same kind of recycled thing. And I'm like, I don't think that's the only thing we go through. Like, there are other facets of our lives that, and this is always it's a further issue because there's so many like the issues of movies is this situation where, like, white people have all these different types of characters. They're so complex, all these different types of characters. But for Black people, it's only like, oh, it's just this. Like, white people can have like 20 different types of characters, and Black people only have like 2, kind of thing. And I feel like we need to do better, especially since normally the issue we have with a lot of the white shows is that there's a Black token character that's like one trick pony, or a token gay that's one, and that's the issue. So I feel like it's a little bit for and since Tyler Perry is like not white, obviously, like, it's like you're a Black guy, so like I would hope that he would want to like show, maybe show more, what I mean? Like, just kind of just add a bit more. Not that you have to completely I mean, hey, it's working, and that's what's paying the bills, that works, and it's not that he's not helping in the Blacks, like, he's giving Black people jobs and stuff, and so it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's like, do what you have to do, but I just think we can go beyond this now. We can add more to his stories and still keep the same Tyler Perry flavor, but like, just add more, like more complexity, more, because and it doesn't have to be like all like, I don't know if you want to say like, oh maybe it's too vanilla. Like, no, because in Abbott Elementary there are vanilla type situations, I guess, but there are also really serious things that happen too, with issues of, and also there's like, there's different characters and different foils in Abbott Elementary, so like there's more, you can question more things, right? Like, you'll have like the Black lady who's a church and God-fearing woman, and then you have the who's a teacher, and then the parent who like, you know, is dressed like provocatively, and like her job is a little bit questionable, but we see like them talk and discuss and like talk about like, you know, like the judgment that sometimes people have when they maybe have a job that's not desirable, and how other people feel about that and things like that. And then there's issues with like, you know, I think like one daughter going to Penn, but the other one didn't, kind of thing, and like how they're treated differently, or the mother who needs money, or you know, or and there's just like, I don't know, like there's more like questions about things, and there's just more complexity, and you're really thinking like, oh, is that okay? Like I just think Abbott really makes you think about different types of like things, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, you know. So like, whereas with Tyler Perry stuff, I'm always kind of like the more recent ones, I don't always feel like watching them, because I'm like, oh, I wonder what it's like. I can already guess. Oh, I wonder what it's gonna be. I wonder what the ending is. You know, it's very easy to like tell what it's about. You know, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like, well, we need that too. Maybe people need that too. But I'm like, maybe can he make those movies and other like, you know, can we add stuff to it and still have that part? Because then it makes it difficult, like it, you know, because then it's like, is that all we are? Like that's what everyone, and I'm like, I don't think it's everyone's experience, or like the only type of experience there is. So that's one difference there. It's kind of very, if I'm watching something, I much prefer watching like Abbott Elementary than like any more Tyler Perry stuff, because in Abbott I'm like, oh, okay, you have all these different types of characters and more complex stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, that happens, and I think anyone that's watching it would be able to see more of, it's like having a plate of like different dishes, and they're able to experience more different dishes. Like there's different dishes on the plate, you know what I mean, on the table. Whereas for Tyler Perry stuff, it's like, oh, I only have this one dish or two dishes, and that's it, and I don't really have much variety. And I think variety is the word I'm looking for. I think it would be interesting to see if Tyler Perry would add more variety to his storylines, you know, and just because I don't know why he's kind of like, I don't want to say pigeonholing himself, but like it's, I don't know, it just seems like that. And the same thing with with Awkward Black Girl, like you brought up with Issa Rae's thing, where you know, even though that obviously it's not as much of a production compared to Tyler Perry, obviously, because she was starting out, but even Awkward Black Girl, yeah, you have different types of characters with different experiences and different thoughts and different, you know, and not everyone is in the same pot, you know, like just because a person's Black, they don't think all the same. Like we have different thoughts and things that we go through, and which makes it more relatable to more people, I think. Um, and so that's how I feel. And then another show that comes to, I mean, I don't, well, you watch more Blackish, so maybe like, you know, you would be able to discuss more that, how that compares to like Abbott or like Tyler Perry stuff.
Okay.
Because I don't know if would that be a good another good example.
I mean, for me, I didn't see as much of Blackish, really.
Okay.
I saw a few, I did see a few episodes, and noted that I felt that also had room for improvement. I think initially I was excited for it due to the hype they made for it, due to wanting to claim it's like the newer version of the Cosby Show, because it's a Black family and they're well off, and it's about them and their kids and blah blah blah, and living in suburbia America vibes.
Suburbia,
you know. And after seeing a few episodes, I took note that this is not giving what I needed it to give. I felt there was more depth in Cosby Show episodes than there were in this one. There were more depth in Scandal episodes than there was in this one. And I just thought they didn't utilize the talent that they had. Like, you have the Lawrence Fishburne, the with a capital T, Lawrence Fishburne, and you just have them sitting in the kitchen being a grandpa looking at a newspaper, and that's it. And I'm like, do you know what kind of monologues he could deliver on this? Like, do you know what kind of really beautiful scenes he could be doing with the different characters? And you just want him sitting there having a few lines and that's it? Like, I mean, I guess if it was just having fun, that's fine. But I just felt like, What are you
Give
doing?
us
You know?
more.
And the same with the lady who played, I think her last name's Lawrence, the lady who played the grandmother. She also is a very talented actor, you know? So I'm like, you have access to like really amazing Black with a capital B talent. And are you using it? No. You just have them for a laugh track. And I'm just like, the fact that they're still alive and they agreed to show up on set for this thing and this is what you're using it for? Like, what are you? Okay. Yeah. And then Tracy Ellis Ross is like, yes, we love the style and the hair. It's great. It's great. But they also weren't really doing much with her. I felt they weren't doing much with her either. Like she was just doing like 3 different emotions in every episode and that's it. And I'm like, but we're piping it up because she's like a Black doctor with kids and a husband vibes. And so unfortunately, with Black-ish, and possibly even Grownish, I saw even less of. But I just felt that to me, it felt like, yes, it's a Black show, but I'm questioning who's behind it because it's feeling a little too diluted.
Yes, diluted is the word I'm looking for, yeah.
Compared to these other shows where it's like, no, there must be some Black person sitting at the table because somebody's advocating to make this story be what it needs to be, advocating to make this character be what it needs to be. While with what I saw from Blackish, I was like, that's not what's happening when there was so much opportunity to do more with the show. So the main thing that the takeaway for me was I loved what is her name? The little sister who wore glasses. I know her name starts with an M. Martine. I know her name starts with an M as well. But I loved her energy in the show. And one, because I'm also somebody who was like born with glasses on my face. So it's a big deal for me to see representation of kids with glasses. And it's not a token. It's not a comic relief. It's not, we're always breaking her glasses for fun. It's like, it's just part of
Martin.
What?
Marseille Martin.
There we go. And Marseille, yes. So I loved that already because before in television, the only time you have glasses would be like Steve Urkel. So glasses was like, it's a prop to show that the character is a geek or a dork or not wanted, as opposed to glasses are just, you need to wear glasses because the character wears glasses and you move on. So I love that representation because I'm like, that really makes a difference for kids who wear glasses because we really don't see that much in television. But then also love how she has grown and navigated, her and her parents probably navigated the entertainment industry to have her own production company, be doing her own shows, doing the types of endorsements she's doing, and still growing up. Do I want to say gracefully? As in it doesn't look like they're rushing her to be an adult or rushing her to be over-sexualized. It's like, no, the types of stuff that she's doing is still age appropriate, but also still very much into representation for what she believes is important. So that was, to me, it was like, well, it was through Blackish that I got introduced to that talent. And so I'm always rooting for her whenever she pops up on something. But would I put that in? I don't think Blackish had such a chokehold on one particular topic like Tyler Perry movies are. But I just feel like they had an opportunity that they didn't really fully run with the amount of backing they had, because the hype for it was crazy. It made it seem like this is going to revolutionize television. Like we've never seen this before since 19 something. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's see what it is about. And then no.
And watching them like, what is,
and it's just like, no. And I thought, especially since they insisted with the hyping, they insisted on keep on making comparisons to the Cosby Show. And I'm looking at you like, if you're going to do that, you need to deliver something beyond the Cosby Show. You can't do that and underperform. So to be honest, if you want to do that, then you should have hired, now what is his name? The actor who played the son in the Cosby Show. He could have played the dad in Blackish and possibly done more with it. But that again depends on who is sitting at the table producing this and insisting what the show should be. So that's what I would take note of since you brought it up. Yes.
Yeah. Since we're going to put that in there.
Just put that in there.
Add that in there.
So the next, I wanted to segue away from TV and movies. So is there anything else you want to note about that before I shift into this next part? Okay. So as we're going along with how Black spaces it has been evolving, I feel like technology has also been a big part of this. Remember at the beginning, we noted, it's just physical spaces. You have your green book, you have your boycotts, etc. And a lot of that at that time, a lot of this was private, as in, unless you're in the Black space, you have no idea what's being discussed. You have no idea what the priorities are. You have no idea when the meeting is, because you're outside. You're not inside. You don't have the green book because you're not Black, right? With technology, we now have, for the past decade or so, something like Black Twitter, something like blackplanet.com, something like, I don't even know if Black TikTok has happened really. I don't know. But I think so, because there'll be conversations happening of Black creators on TikTok noting how they're being treated or how their stuff gets copied by other people, etc. And this has, from time to time, got me thinking in terms of how Black spaces continues to evolve. And again, asking the question, is it providing the purpose and the goal for what Black spaces needed, has always been needed to be? So with Black Twitter, where it's not a separate Twitter, it's just on Twitter, Black people, as always, they will create their own wherever they are. But that then happened in public. So whether it's advocacy, we're using Twitter to note that we're going on strike for this, or we're going to protest for that, or we're going to boycott this, et cetera, and it goes viral. There's that. We're using Twitter for a hashtag, say this person's name, because they were killed unnecessarily by the police force, or they were killed unnecessarily by something else. So then Twitter is utilized, that is part of Black Twitter, of utilizing that, trying to pay tribute and raise awareness that there is violence happening and that's a problem. Then there's Black Twitter connected to entertainment, where back in the day when we would watch Scandal, we would live tweet discussing or reacting to what we're watching. That is a very Black Twitter, invented this concept of live tweeting while everybody is watching a show individually. And this was before streaming. This was on cable that you're watching, or satellite, I guess, that you're watching a show, but everybody, regardless of where you are, is live tweeting it. And then the next day, it was actually a thing where the next day, people like BuzzFeed.com or other bloggers would go back to the hashtag and use that as content of, this is what Black Twitter said about Scandal the next day. Like, that was like the amount of, I'm saying this to note, like the amount of innovation that comes into how these Black spaces have been created or evolved since the time of having a green book, where it wasn't, I don't think anybody necessarily planned it, but it's like there's this constant pattern of always creating the room that nobody else gave them, always creating the space that nobody else gave us. Like that has been the vibe. But where I again be asking the question of, okay, we utilize technology where Black spaces became something like what is that? Not amplify it. When you speak into a microphone thing and it makes your voice louder. I'm forgetting the name of it.
Megaphone?
There we go. Yes. Where we use technology almost like a megaphone for Black spaces of, now all the rest of you who usually would not be at the Black space meeting in this church or in someone's living room. Now, whereas all of you can see it, all of you hear it, all of you are watching it, all of you know it. And then you add where you are creating content to give those receipts as well. This is how we do our hair. This is what we're doing in our families. This is what you need to be doing with dating. This is like all of this stuff is just outside, Keke. Just outside. And I've noted how this has caused some, again, when it comes to representation, where some voices are louder that tend to not necessarily represent the entire demographic. And because it's on the internet, it tends to always lean more towards entertainment or harassment, as opposed to group economics, group education, group advocacy, group community, like the original Black spaces that were originally created in person. And so for me, that always got me noting how, like, I'm not saying this to be like, oh, because technology is a bad thing, or we should not tweet anything, or we should not share anything. It's like, on the one hand, it enabled the Black space possibly to enlarge really big, because that means you are connecting to people outside of your neighborhood or your circle or your bubble, which is great. But then that also makes it also makes you vulnerable for hijacking or people diluting the message, because then people online can pretend to be something they're not. They could pretend they're part of the community when they're not. Then there's also the deal of things go, the Black Twitter creates a certain slang term, let's say, and non-Black people pick it up and go viral with it and make money off of it. Yes? Mm-hmm. And then we see this repeated for other demographics as well. Like, for example, right now, there's something going on trending where people are saying very demure, very cutesy. Like, people keep on saying that in their videos. Now, apparently the first person, oh, you haven't seen that yet? Okay. The first person who created this was somebody who, they put this on their video because I think I don't know if they were raising money or not for themselves or wanting some sort of surgery for themselves. And it went viral and everyone was using it, almost like the term on fleek. It was a Black girl who created that term. And then it went viral and then somebody else tried to trademark it and make money off of it that was separate from her. This very demure thing, it happened again. Now, this person who created very demure, they're not Black. But it happened again where somebody else trademarked it so that unless they go through the process of suing them, they won't be able to make money off of it. So this deal of utilizing technology and basically using a megaphone to push Black spaces outside of the group community privately in terms of just safety, it's become more of like now Black space is just for entertainment. And then when you ever have someone trying to utilize Black spaces for an intellectual conversation, let's ask some questions and understand, why are our group economics not working? Why can't we keep money within our community before we give it to just everybody else? Why is this happening in our school districts? Why is this happening in our families? Why do you still allow your uncle who you know is a rapist to the house picnic? Why? Let's talk about that. That's when people, that's not for here. That's not polite. That's not correct. We do that at home. We don't do that out here. And so then that I feel that we're in this, like, we don't know yet how we want Black spaces to actually benefit us right now because it's morphed into so many different things. Yeah. Almost like it was much simpler when we have this Black space, because if we're not here, we're going to get killed. So we're just going to be here. Like, the fact that the whole focus was just survival, it was simpler to understand why this needs to be kept secret, why this needs to be kept in a certain way. Not to say no one's in survival mode now, because of course a lot of people are in survival mode right now. But I don't know, due to the way things have evolved, I guess, or progressed or changed, it's so easy to it's almost so easy to somewhat dilute the importance of these sorts of spaces, because a lot of the times it gets hijacked for entertainment to kind of make it seem like it's not that serious. We were just here to joke. When actually, no, these types of spaces are important and should be taken seriously. But it's difficult to do that if you also really cannot vouch for who's in it and who's not, because everybody has a different priority as to why they're there or why they are responding to it.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Yeah, I feel like it was much easier with even though it was sad, like back then, Black spaces was like, so we won't die, but it was easier to tell for one thing, you tell who's Black, because it's like face to face, you can see the person, kind of thing. And then obviously we were all scared for our lives, so, kind of thing. Whereas now with like the internet, it's very easy to kind of like twist things more and like pretend you're for the cause, but not make it about that, but not, kind of thing. And I think it does make it, yeah. I mean, it's like with usual, like social media, like technology is awesome, but it has a pros and cons, right? On one hand, yes, you can push it out more and you can make, you can touch more people if it's online, right? Because the more people can use it and things like that and have access to it. But on the other hand, you don't know who's like behind the screen, right? You don't know exactly like who, are we really for the cause, or is this just a way of like, and we saw that definitely with what's it called? With what happened in George Floyd, where like,
yes, the Black Lives Matter.
yes, the Black Lives Matter thing, where we saw how social media was helpful, but also not helpful, you know, like where one is like, okay, say her name, remember her name and all that stuff. That was good. But then when they would do stuff that like, I don't know how much it helped. Like, you know, there's that one thing where it was like the black, like it was just on Instagram, you just put a black screen.
Yeah, the black
Like
square
just
or
a
something. Yeah.
black square. And I'm like, I mean, I get it, but I don't know.
But like
I'm not sure how
some
much.
people are still dying out here. So how does that
I know,
make?
like, what
Yeah.
did that do? Like, you know, I'm just kind of like,
Yeah.
especially when people were bringing up how like, what if you don't do any other type of activism? Like, you don't do anything, you don't care, like, or you're racist and you're like, okay, I'll put a black space up. Like, you know, like anyone could do. That's my issue. Anyone could put it. You could be the most
Yes.
racist person ever. Like, oh, you know, just for jokes, I'm just gonna put a black square on my Instagram, you know, kind of thing. And then that was the issue with that. You know, I understand the intent, but you know, and then also the usual thing. Well, this is going more into like, you know, the Black Lives Matter, but like making like black band-aids. And I'm like, I don't really see how that well anyway, you know, kind of thing. Just, you know, and so it's like, yes, you're, you know, doing stuff outside and doing stuff online and trying to, you know, get the black spaces out. But sometimes like it's like you have black spaces, but they're not always utilized in the best way or the right way. Um and so that and I suppose that brings us to more like the what's the word? Like I guess the organic type of black spaces versus like the I guess what's the word, premeditated ones? I don't know, or like, you know, and then and I don't know, should we move on to anime being a type of
No, we can add it. Yes, go ahead.
we can add to, so for anime, obviously everyone knows Japanese anime, that's the main thing, but I don't know if you all know, but there are a lot of black fans, you know, like me that are into anime. And I think that anime is a form of could be an organic black space, right? Because you see like many like black fans coming together and creating their own type of like cosplay that fits in with the, like it's a Japanese character, but it's up to interpretation, right? And so we make our own part. And there's some black people that I follow on Instagram that are very into like, they go to different they do cosplay. Cosplay is like you dress up as for those that don't know, it's when you dress up as an anime character that you really like, and they'll go to different like anime conventions together and do all these things and like and of course obviously we always have our own like flavor and everything, but I think that and that space was not given to us. We just kind of did it, and we know that with most things racism is everywhere, and there is racism that we go through, like as if like, oh well, you're black, so how, like you can't dress up as a Japanese character, or like, you know, like it's always like people are gonna push us out as if like like why can't a black person like anime, like what, you know, what is that about, kind of thing. And so again, us making our own space and trying to see how do we fit as a black fan with anime, which is, you know, it's by Japanese people. There's also the added thing where like you don't have a lot of black characters in anime, but like that makes sense. It's a Japanese thing. So obviously you're going to have mostly Japanese characters. And then of course there's always the issue of like, you want to enjoy Japanese anime, but then sometimes it can be difficult because, you know, you might have other fans that are racist, kind of thing, or sometimes the black characters in Japanese anime are not like shown in a good light, you know, kind of thing. There's kind of like more of a trope stereotype thing going on there. But I think we still have been able to enjoy it in our own way, and that I think is like enjoying anime as a black fan could also be a type of black space and organic, because it's just we both, you know, just a bunch of black fans and we really like anime and we come together and we do events together, and it wasn't, and it's not made to like, and it's not like we're calling it a black space or this is a black space, come here. No, it just happens to be a black space because, you know, we all, you know, came together and we enjoyed something, and we have our own flavor, our own like I guess like view of it, or because, you know, we're all black people that like the anime. So yeah, and I think that I don't, in some ways that is and then a lot of times, and then this way you're using black spaces in real time and online, right? Because I think most of the time you might like meet fan online, and then you all get to, because that happens a lot with anime fans where it's like you meet them online and then, oh, okay, let's go to an event outside, let's go to a convention, let's all get together and do, and then that makes it like bigger, and then maybe you meet other fans at the event, that makes it grow. So I think that's another type of form of Black space that I would think that's also important as well.
Yes, I do like that, because I think it does also again touch on what we noted of how Black spaces are. There's always this recurring pattern of creating or carving your own space because it's not given to you.
Yes.
And how exhausting it is to always be in spaces where you need to have permission to exist, but you must perform a certain way to get that permission. Yes. So constantly always looking for or creating the space where I can actually just breathe and not have to perform. Just be kind of thing. So that is, which is a testament to, because it continues to happen regardless, which is like, if that needs to continue to happen, then you got to know or understand what that means. Then the opposite of that has not resolved yet. If people still need to create these spaces, because the spaces outside of that are either not wholesome or not welcoming or not safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In that though, I feel like, so for me, as we bring it all together, yes.
As we do,
I feel the concept of Black spaces will probably always continue to evolve as our access changes and as our exposure changes as well. Because unlike previously when it first started, now you actually do have a lot of, because again, this is like the US Black experience, but you have a lot of US Black people abroad. And more of them are living abroad, visiting abroad, or even trying to be abroad and inside, outside vibes, which I feel, taking note of how Black spaces are created in different parts of the world because of that. Like, for example, apparently in Thailand, there is a whole Black community there that even is now creating like Caribbean festivals and stuff like that there, which technically speaking is not necessarily of the place, even though Thailand has like Asian and Indian and island influences with their own demographic. But you're bringing, outside culture really and creating that safe space for you to explore and experience that for yourself. And I haven't been to Thailand yet, really, to see like, did you have to do that because you weren't safe, or you did that because you just wanted to have this experience and it wasn't here yet and you're allowed to because they're like, yeah, sure, if you want to do it and you get paid, it's fine. So that's like I noted in the beginning, it would be fascinating to understand or get to hear or see, how does that concept of Black spaces play out in other parts of the world where you do have Black communities or Black people who have had to carve out their own room when that room was not given to them. And it's not only pertaining to Black Americans going to that place, because other parts of the world also had indigenous Black original people there before it was colonized. And not all of them were killed off. Some of them still remained and have descendants. So understanding, well, what was that dynamic for them as well? Do they also have their own version of a green book? That would be interesting. But when it comes to what the Black space provides, with these different examples we noted of how it's evolved, I will still always take note of like, there is more than enough room to incorporate more in it. Like, it's fine that I feel like it's fine that we have entertainment in it. It's fine that we have socializing in it. I feel that though I feel like it's still important though to understand that you do need effective advocacy in it, not entertainment advocacy or entertainment activism, but effective advocacy or effective lobbying should be in it as well. Effective and efficient strategic economic methodologies of some kind should be in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it should be in there. That should be involved too. And education also with it, group education within it. Those sorts of things I don't think need to be fallen by the wayside because of how this thing has evolved. It's so many strangers because it's expanded so much. While originally it was like, no, you know each other in the Black space because it's within your community, it's within your neighborhood. So those deeper conversations or those closer bonds or those closer dynamics where you would be doing those sorts of activities was normal because that's what you need to do in your environment. While now, like you noted, even for the anime thing, it's like, yes, that the support and everything is still on the social entertainment side and the representation side, which is important and it's great and it's good. And even I've noticed sometimes then people will branch out in that and be like, actually, they're going to host a convention that's only for this group. So you don't have to deal with some of the negative experiences they're having in the mainstream conventions that they go to, where they come in their Black cosplay and people are insisting it's wrong because that character can't have braids or this, or you can't be this character because you're too curvy or nonsense like that. So that's great. And that's part of the representation side of it too. But I do feel that we just because sometimes I feel like just because if what the original Black spaces were and what they tried to fight for, and if you look in hindsight, what difference did it make or not? I don't think we should look at that and be like, so we should just stick to socializing and entertainment and that's it. Because I mean, you got civil rights out of it because you boycotted, but then what? Like what? We're still having to say her name or say his name. And I'm like, yes, but that doesn't mean we should just be having Black spaces just for vibes on vibes. And that's it, because we can't even be bothered. We like almost like we've already been somewhat defeated. So there's no reason to even try to make Black spaces be something like, actually, this is a lobbyist group. This is a think tank. There's more to it than just entertainment and socializing. So I do feel that there's room to have a balance for those different things. There's room for a variety of different people to play different roles in that. I get it that not everybody wants to be the activist or not everybody wants to be the rebel or not everybody wants to be fighting or yelling all the time. I get that, right? Like that can be exhausting. So it's fine if you want to just do cupcakes, like it's fine, right? But like there's space for all of that in the Black space because it's so very much needed, because there's so much that still has not been resolved in that. So it doesn't fully, almost like it doesn't fully deliver what it needs, because like the socializing and the vibes and entertainment is still happening to be happening in the space or the system that is causing some of the problems in the first place. So you're still like tolerating BS, but at least we happied ourselves. And that's it, right? While it's like, no, part of Black spaces should be eliminate the BS. Or you need to respect this space, don't bring the BS. And now we can enjoy ourselves too. I just feel like that there's room for that as well. But of course, it takes being strategic to do that. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. It is very possible. Yes.
Yeah. I agree.
Great. So
we need everything, but I understand why, like, it's hard, because when you do the easier fun stuff, people tend to like leave us alone. But the moment like, oh, Black people are doing serious stuff, we have to go, where's the fire? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are they planning? I'm like, we just want to live. Leave us alone. Like, they always think we're going to like do, I'm like, if we were going to rise up and attack y'all, we were done it by now. Like, y'all, come on. Like, we have other things to worry about. Like, we have bills to pay. Like, we have things to worry about. The world is on fire. Climate change is a thing. Like, so yeah, I think that yes, it would be useful to have more of those type of spaces where like, we talk about like how to be Black in America, how to deal with finances when you're Black, because it's different, the way money works and the way money moves, and like and everything's about economics this, economics that kind of thing. And even like, knowing where to go or what to say or like how to react to certain things, and just, so we can live more peacefully and not be so angry all the time, because we're always like, as in earlier podcasts, we talk about how like there's something on our backs, like there's always like an issue on our backs that Black people have. They're just is different from everybody else's stuff they went through. And and it's not lost on me or us how when a lot of times when Black people do try to do more serious stuff, they end up being like taken out or removed, or because we don't want you to do serious stuff. We just want to like You just do just the easy things, do the serious stuff. We don't like that. We don't like it when we come together. What was that thing with what was in the movie? What was it in of Denzel Washington with what's it called? Malcolm X, and the thing that the guy said, I don't know what he said, where he was like, it's dangerous, like if someone with that much power shouldn't have them. What was that line he said? Where like, oh, like Malcolm X shouldn't have as much power as he has, because like when Malcolm X says go, a whole group of people just go, like without question, you know. And I don't know if it's similar, where like if we have a bunch of Black spaces that are very like all of us are together and we know, like, you know, we're all working together in a uniform way, like does that make people like itchy? Like does that make white people you know what I mean? Does that make society at large itchy? Because, oh, what are they doing? Why are they getting together and doing strategic smart things? What's going on? Why are they figuring out how to deal with their money? Oh no, we won't be able to rip them off as much. Like, you know what I mean? Like we know, and that's not only with Black people, like everyone in America has the issue where like the government, people are trying to like, how can we mess with your money? Give us your money. We'll pay for stuff that you don't know about, and then wonder why we were mad. Like, you know, it's this that constant thing where it's like, take money from people, use your money how we want, don't give you money, keep you on a leash, like that kind of thing. And obviously, if we could all figure out the money situation, we would have more control. But then other people would have like an issue, you know, with that. Like, you know, the man, as they say, what was it, the man that's always taking your money. But anyway, yeah. So that's an issue too. But I think there are ways, people do figure out ways around that and figure out ways to like, you know, how, like, you know, I mean, of course, the only way, of course, is to have like a Black space that like we only know what's there, like we only know all the passwords and no one else knows what's going on. Like, you know, like it's a hidden like Harry Potter style where we have a room and like unless you have the map, you can't find it. You know, kind of thing, like a secret society type vibe. But of course, that's, you know, neither here nor there. But
there's actually a book on that describes
yeah.
it.
Oh, isn't it the spook one? The spook that sat on
the spook who sat by the door. So if you're interested in that, you should check out that book. I think the author's last name is Green. So yes, that's a good story. Yes.
Right. So, but anyway, that I think it's, you know, it's not lost in us, where because if we're just doing fun things, we're like, oh, it's just fun, we don't have to worry about that kind of thing. It's like, what if you think we're doing fun stuff, but secretly we're you know, discussing how do you work with your money, or how do you deal with your money, or how do you deal with social society issues, or like how to be the best activist, or how to like, or like how to be an activist and not be burnt out, you know, and how to block out the noise that comes at us that distracts us from the most important things we have to like focus on as a Black community, kind of thing. But yeah, so I think it's interesting to see how the Black space, how it's changed, and what it's become, and like how much it helps us or doesn't help us, and like how we can do more with it as it evolves, and yeah, see what happens.
Yes. So thank you so much for this conversation. And
yes, very interesting.
Yes, I hope you listening also enjoyed it. As always, we love hearing from you. So what stood out to you? What would you add to this topic? Do you think Black spaces is even needed anymore? Or what direction do you think it should be evolving in? And also, as I noted a few times in this episode, interested in knowing or hearing how this dynamic plays out even outside of the US reference or US history as well. As well as if spaces also, we are Black, so obviously this is the only reference we can speak to. But if you are not Black and there is Asian spaces is something that you have a reference to, or Latin spaces or island spaces, or what, you know, different other people who like you need to create. You've also seen that your people need to carve out your own space, because if you don't, you will continue being marginalized. Also interested in hearing that dynamic as well, because I do feel we probably have more in common and could learn even more from each other, as opposed to maintaining everyone should be in a different box like the Crayola crayons. So love to hear your take on that. And we again hope you enjoy the conversation as well. And we'll see you, hear from you, and check you out on the next episode.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Take care.